Hi folks, welcome back to a short video from the Audiophile. Today I'm going to talk to you about audio upgrades in EVs. Something we get asked a lot about. People are worried about doing it, they're worried about the range, they're worried about the capacity of the car, the battery system, etc, etc. So this is a new Cupra and we've just installed a nice DSP hi-fi in here with A-pillar builds, etc. So let me try and answer some of the questions which we get asked a lot of. So first of all, in an EV, you still have a 12-volt system, or at least you have done so far. That could change in the future, but I doubt it. So you've still got a 12-volt battery that runs mostly electronics inside the car, like the instrument cluster, your CAN networks, etc., everything else. And that 12-volt battery, rather than being charged from an alternator, as in a petrol-driven car or diesel-driven car, an alternator kind of like electric motor, which is spun round by the engine, it generates DC and it charges the battery, and that could be anything from, you know, an 80 amp alternator right up to sort of a 250 300 amp alternator on some commercial vehicles. Now in an EV you've got your 400 volt battery system. It's DC, and that's charged using a DC to DC inverter. So that takes the 400 volts, steps it down to 13.8 volts or 14.4 volts, somewhere around there, and it charges the main battery, the 12 volt battery. So when we're adding hi-fi to a car, we've got to add an amplifier generally. In this car, we've added an Audison Forza amplifier. It's an 8-channel amplifier with a built-in DSP. It's quite compact, and in fact, we've made a bracket system up, and in here, it's actually behind the dash. So the amplifier is right at the back there on a metal bracket on all the original fixings. So it's super neat and tidy. Now, when the amplifier is ticking over, in other words, when you've got the audio on, but the audio is very, very quiet in the car, it's only drawing a tiny amount of current, just a couple of amps. Now, the thing with audio and the way we hear and power, it's logarithmic. So it means if you're listening to your music quite quietly, say you listen to spoken radio, the amplifier's ticking along, it might be drawing 2 amps. Now, if you turn the music up to a reasonable listening level, it's not going to make a huge amount of difference. So it's going to draw a little bit more power, but not a lot. It's only when you start getting up to the higher volume levels that the amplifier is really going to start to draw some power. So just to put that into perspective, to make a system twice as loud, you need 10 times the amount of power. So in other words, the amplifier might be drawing 2 amps, but most of that is just quiescent power drain. The actual power by the Class D amplifier being used to amplify the music at very low volume might literally just be a few milliamps. And if you double the volume, it goes up 10 times, so now it might be an amp. And if you double the volume again, it goes up 10 times, so now it might be 10 amps. And 10 amps is still okay to draw from a normal 12 volt battery. But also remember, when you listen to music, it's not a constant power draw. As the notes go up and down, the power draw goes up and down. So it becomes a very wiggly, spiky line like this if you actually try and analyze it. So the 12 volt battery actually buffers that. So the 12 volt battery acts as a reservoir. So when you turn your music up, you get a drum beat or something very loud. The amplifier very quickly draws a larger amount of current, but that comes from the battery. It doesn't come from the DC-DC inverter in the car. The battery acts just like a reservoir. It's a bit like a toilet system. So you've got water trickling into it. When you flush the toilet, you get a large amount out very quickly. That's what the battery does. Now, these new Class D amplifiers are super efficient. So to answer your question, is it a problem to add a hi-fi to an EV? No, it's not. Would it reduce your range? I suppose you could probably take a measurement, and I suppose there could be some tiny marginal difference in the range. If you had the hi-fi turned up really loud, like I mean really loud, so the amplifier is drawing, you know, 20, 30 amps, which it can do, not constantly, but it's going to go up and down, then yeah, I guess you could reduce the range slightly. I think you'd have a job to measure it. So this system, as you can see, we've added A-pillars to it. So it means we've taken the original A-pillars, stripped them down, made these mouldings to get the tweeters in. The reason why we have to do that is because the tweeters in these sit horribly off axis, and the grills are very restrictive. So as you move around inside the vehicle, the frequency response to the driver changes so much. So we put them on axis as we can with these A-pillar builds. As I said before, you've got a Forza amplifier, it's an 8-channel amplifier. It's driving the whole system actively. You've also got here the DRC controller, so we've made up a little metal bracket for this, which is nice and neat, and we use this to increase and decrease the level of the subwoofer, and also to change the listening position inside the car. So there you go. That's a brief overview of the hi-fi that's in here, but more importantly, hopefully a little bit of an explanation about the facts surrounding upgrading car audio in an EV. If you need more information, please get in touch. It's sales@audiophile-incar.co.uk. Thank you for listening.